What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I finally created the custom tier list for you guys. So basically, I'm going to create a tier list for you guys because if you guys haven't watched my video that I posted a couple weeks ago talking about the Pride Win tier list, I basically decided to make my own tier list. So that's basically what we're going to do in this video. So before I get started, make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe, and also turn on post notification bells so that you guys can always stay tuned as I post new videos. I really appreciate it. And if you guys are new here on the channel, I have a Discord server, so you guys are interested, you can head on over to the channel description. You see the server link there, and I'll also post the server link in the comment section down below. But anyways, let's not waste any time. Let's hop right into the video. You guys already know what I'm about to say. This tier list is solely based off of my opinion and also y'all's opinions as well. And I'll say, like, I'm definitely going to put the characters who I feel like I understand the most, because I'm gonna be honest with y'all, most of the characters on this tier list, especially the ones that are trash, I don't even play with them because why would I build them? Because they suck. So it's like I'm definitely going to probably put the characters who are in like B tier and above only. I feel like C and D tier there's just like no point. So let's go ahead and get started. Now the first character I want to talk about is Kun Ron. Now Kun Ron is a decent DPS unit overall. I feel like the biggest thing about Kun Ron is the fact that he can deal good damage, especially the more copies you get on him. The more copies you get on Kun Ron, he can do exceptional damage for sure. But the only problem with Kun Ron is that his accuracy, like, that's literally the only problem. He misses a lot with his special skill, and his special skill is literally a one shot. If he's actually able to land his special skill, he can do some serious damage to the enemy team. So overall, I feel like Kun Ron is going to be a solid S tier character. If you get him to like Rainbow, he's broken. Like, he's an absolutely busted unit when you get him to like Rainbow. So Kun Ron, definitely solid unit. The only thing that's holding him back is that accuracy. You have to put a lot of accuracy on his character in order for him to actually land his attacks, because his special skill is like the main part of his kit. Because when he lands that special skill, boy oh boy, he's going to do some devastating damage against the enemy. Now the next character I also want to talk about is none other than Yihwa. Now Yihwa, she is literally by far the most broken DPS unit in the game. The reason why she is so broken is because she can inflict defense decrease, and on top of that, she can basically do a huge AoE attack that covers the entire field. She is really easy to build. All you need to do is put the attack speed set on her. You also have to put a lot of evasion on her, some accuracy as well, and she's just gonna nuke the entire team. So Yihwa, definitely still one of the most broken characters in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and put her probably in that, yeah, I'm definitely going to put Yihwa in that SS tier. Now the real question is where is Yihwa? It's so hard to find these characters. All right, there she is. So we're going to put her in that SS tier. She's still broken for sure. Of course, there's going to be situations where she won't be able to kill the whole team instantly, but you can basically say the same for almost every single character in this game. So overall, Yihwa is still busted as one of the best DPS in the game because she has like an AoE huge attack, and on top of that, she has a shield, and that basically increases her survivability. So overall, really solid unit. Now another character I also want to talk about is none other than Urek Mazino. Now Urek Mazino, he is literally an SSR plus character, and he is a blue element unit. So Urek Mazino, the reason why he's literally one of the best blue element units in the game is because his survivability is decent. He can also decrease the enemy's swiftness. So the fact that he's able to decrease the enemy's swiftness, that can basically slow down the enemy, and that can basically allow your Urek Mazino to stay alive even longer. And on top of that, he's able to have that knockback. So the knockback is basically like a stun, which is really solid. And plus, when he dies, he basically has a huge AoE stun. Now, of course, if a certain enemy has, like, you know, immunity, status effect immunity, they might be immune to the AoE stun, but that AoE stun is still cracked. And on top of that, the fact that he's able to continuously proc shields for your whole team, it's really insane. So overall, Urek Mazino, I'm definitely going to put him in an SS tier because he's just a really solid unit overall. Against bosses, I would put him probably around like A tier or S tier. I put him in A tier against bosses, but overall he is definitely an SS tier character. Now we move on to another character, which is Evan Kell. Now Evan Kell, she is a red element unit, and overall Evan Kell, she's just really good. The reason why she's a really solid unit is because she deals good damage. When she actually lands her special skill, she can do devastating damage, which is absolutely insane. And one of the best things about her is the fact that she's able to decrease the amount of healing that the enemy can receive. And she also becomes invincible in her special skill. And then when we look at her active, which is Rare Orb Festival of Flames, she basically summons a flame vortex for 3 seconds. The vortex eventually explodes and deals 400% of her attack as damage, knocking them down for 2 seconds. So not only can she do good damage, she can also knock the enemy down, which basically allows her to have that stun. So overall, Evan Kell, she's also pretty good in PvP as well. She's still one of the best SSR plus, red SSR plus units overall. So Evan Kell, definitely in that SS tier. Honestly, it is really hard to find some of these characters, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, Evan Kell, she's still up there on the meta. She's still a really good character. Like the fact that she can recover HP, she's immune to status effects, and on top of that, she basically recovers missing HP. She's just a really solid character overall, and then she also has that decreased HP recovery, which is really good. So Evan Kell, definitely up there in that tier list. Now another character we're going to talk about is Vespa. Now when we talk about Vespa, I feel like Vespa overall, she's a solid unit, but she's only good against bosses. And the reason why she's only good against bosses is because she has that huge swiftness decrease. She also has that damage over time. And she also has the healing where she can basically heal herself if her HP goes below, I think 50%. Basically when her HP goes below a certain percentage, she can basically heal herself. And she also has a paralyze. So overall, I feel like Vespa, she's a really solid unit. But against, like, if you were to put Vespa against a team, she really wouldn't do that well. She basically performs better against bosses. So I would definitely say that Vespa is a boss unit, and that's pretty much it. So I would definitely put Vespa in that A tier because she is one of the best boss units in the game, because she can basically decrease their swiftness. Now if the boss is immune to swiftness, then of course she will fall to that probably like B tier against bosses. But if most bosses in the game, they're not immune to swiftness, so she's definitely in that A tier, especially when you put her up against the Alliance boss. She's actually really cracked against the Alliance boss. So yeah, she's definitely up there in that A tier. For PvP, she's not really that good in PvP, and then for story, she's honestly decent, but I'll say she's mostly good against bosses overall. So Vespa, definitely A tier. And I also want to say this as well. The only thing, like the biggest drawback with her swiftness decrease is that her swiftness decrease, it's good, but she can slow the enemy down way too long, to the point where if you're putting her up against Quant in mock battle, the fact that Quant has that jumping ability, if you slow him down too much with Vespa's special skill, he's basically going to be invincible for a long amount of time, which basically makes you lose a lot of damage. So I would say that's like the one biggest drawback, but other than that, Vespa is a really good unit against bosses. Now for the next unit, we're going to talk about Chenet. Now Chenet was part of the collab event, so for the players who are brand new to the game, she was part of the collab event. Now Chenet, she is a pretty solid character overall. Her survivability is really good. I would say like the only drawback is of course her damage. She doesn't really do that much damage, but her survivability is really good. Her special move, she basically increases her crit rate, and on top of that, she can also, if her attack lands a crit, she can basically increase her crit rate. And then she also has max 5 stacks for the additional crit rate she receives whenever she lands a crit hit with her attack. So that's pretty much her special move. And then for her passive, she basically has HP increase, and that's pretty much it with Chenet. She basically has a lot of HP increase in her kit. It basically increases her survivability, but overall I'll say damage wise, it's decent, it's not bad. There's other characters who can do more damage, but overall she is a decent unit overall. So I'll put Chenet in the A tier for sure. She's not bad. All I gotta say is that her survivability is good, but damage wise, not the best in terms of damage, but overall in terms of survivability. And also it's pretty easy to build her if you put the max HP equipment set or even the lifesteal equipment set on her. She can survive for a pretty long time. So Chenet, really tanky unit and solid overall. Now for the next character I want to talk about is none other than the king himself, Hwaryun. Now Hwaryun, you guys already know, Hwaryun is literally busted. The dude is literally the best purple DPS unit in the game, and the reason why he is absolutely broken is because for one of his attacks, right? For one of his attacks, he basically teleports, and he can basically teleport to almost every single enemy on the battlefield, and he basically just one-shots everybody on the field. It's absolutely insane. And he also has another attack where he just launches a bunch of key sword waves, and that just does nuclear damage. So overall, Hwaryun, he's not a bad unit. He's really just broken overall, like literally the most broken purple DPS unit in the game. And for his special move, he basically launches a huge sword blast which pierces through enemies. When he uses his special move, if he's able to actually land an attack with that special move, like the sword key waves, is basically going to slow down. So the more you actually hit the enemy with his special move, the more it slows down. It's actually going to do more damage. So that's pretty much how his special move works. It basically says the blast slows down significantly when coming into contact with an enemy, dealing 200% of his attack as damage and jolting him for every 0.5 seconds. So his special move is really solid. And Rampaging Soul, which is his active, he deals 400% of his attack as damage to nearby enemies, jolts them, then becomes berserk for 7 seconds. When he's in berserk, he basically becomes immune to status effects and enhances his basic attacks. He teleports to the farthest enemy, deals 200% of his attack as damage, and jolts them with each attack. Berserk duration increases by 1 second per spell of soul eating stack. So not only can he do incredible damage, he can teleport to the farthest enemy, one-shot them, and on top of that, increase the amount, like basically increase his berserk duration. So Hwaryun, you guys already know where I'm going to put him. The dude is broken, SS tier. It's been a minute since they released like a broken unit, and overall Hwaryun is literally busted. I would say he's even better than Yihwa. I'll say the only problem with Hwaryun is that his survivability is really bad. Like, it's really easy for him to die because the fact that he's a melee unit, of course he's going to charge in the front line, so chances of him surviving is really slim. So if you put him up with the unit that can basically heal, like if you put him with a healer, he'll be a really solid unit overall. And you definitely want to put a lot of accuracy on him, because if you have a lot of accuracy on him, he's basically going to land his attacks and do more damage. You basically want him to do as much damage as much as possible so that he can just instantly clear the enemy team. And plus, the best equipment set for him is the lifesteal set. So overall, Hwaryun, broken, busted unit. Now, the next character I want to talk about is Hatz. Now, Hatz was basically the king of DPS at the beginning phase of the game. And the reason why Hatz was really one of the best DPS units in the beginning of the game is because we really didn't have Yihwa, we didn't have Hwaryun, we basically didn't have any other broken DPS unit beside Hatz. And Hatz, at the beginning phase of the game, he's busted. And the reason why he's so good is because for his passive, he basically can heal himself whenever he lands a crit hit. So whenever he lands a crit attack, he can heal himself up, and that basically allows him to survive for a really long time. And his damage is really solid. The fact that he gets that additional crit by 16% is absolutely insane. And he also has a swiftness increase by 40 for 5 seconds. And of course, the more you limit break him, the more you can increase the amount of swiftness he can receive, and also the amount of crit hit rate he can receive as well. So overall, Hatz is a really solid unit, literally one of the best DPS units at the beginning phase of the game. Of course, you need a lot of copies of him in order for him to work, but overall, he was really one of the best DPS units in the game. So I would definitely put Hatz in that S tier. The reason why I still put him in the S tier is because he's still a pretty solid unit, and he is still dominating in PvP. Like, if you go in PvP you still see people using rainbow hats. Like, you always see people using this unit, and the reason why is because his survivability is good and he can do really good damage. So Hatz, he's still in that S tier unit, and he's still busted for sure. Now, of course, another unit I want to talk about is, I'll say we should do Zia. Now Zia, she came, I think she came with, yeah, she came with Hwaryun, I think, or nah, Zia came with Vile. So Zia, she was one of the first healing units that we've gotten. Not first healing units in the game, but one of the first like banner events that, like, because after Hwaryun it was Zia. So Hwaryun, I mean Zia, she is a healer, and I'll say when she first came out, she was absolutely busted. And the reason why she was busted is because her healing was insane. I mean, her healing is still insane, but the reason why she kind of fell off over time is because her single target healing is just not enough. Because now that we're in the late game, most of our units are just getting one-shotted by the enemy, and I feel like just, you know, healing the enemy up one time, like the single target healing is just not enough. We need like an AoE healing as of to right now in the game. So overall, Zia, I would definitely put Zia in that S tier. I'll say in the early game she is for sure S tier. In the late game she is A tier. But overall, she is still an S tier unit, and the reason why she is still an S tier unit is because her healing is really good, especially when you put her in PvP. And the fact that she's also able to provide additional energy to your ally is really nice. And she also has that red element attack buff. So if you have red element allies on your team, she can basically increase their attack by 30%, which is crazy. So overall, Zia, she's a really solid unit, really good buffing unit as well because of her passive, and her healing really solid overall. So Zia, S tier. And it's also really easy to build her. Like, you don't even need a lot of copies of her. You only need like probably like a purple star or blue stars, and she's already good. So she doesn't even require a lot of investment. She's a really good unit overall in terms of healing. Now, next unit I want to talk about is none other than Yeon. Now, Yeon was also a part of the collab unit. She was one of the 3 characters that we've got in the collab unit. And Yeon overall, Yeon is a really solid character, and the reason why she is so good is because she's really tanky. Like, the reason why she's extremely tanky is because she has this ability where whenever she's about to die, she can basically revive herself. So she's really good overall in terms of survivability, and she really works well in green element teams because out of all the collab characters that we've had in the game so far, like Rachel and Chenet, Yeon, she can proc the green element resistant shard the most because she can proc it in her passive, and she can also proc it in her active. If she's able to land her access denied active, she can land a green element crystal if the enemy doesn't have a green element crystal resistance debuff. So she can basically proc that green element crystal resistance debuff 24/7 because of her active and passive. So I feel like that's one of the main reasons why she's good. And also she can basically put enemies to sleep. I feel like that sleep is really solid. So overall, I'll say Yeon is definitely S tier for sure because of the survivability. It's not really hard to build her. And if you're wondering whether or not, you know, this character is useless, because there's like a lot of people saying Yeon, like all she can do is survive and that's it. That's not true. She can survive, she can put enemies to sleep, and on top of that, she can place the green element resistance debuff on the enemy almost all the time. So she is a really good unit overall, and she does pretty good damage as well, and she's easy to build overall. So Yeon definitely up there in that S tier. Now, next character I want to talk about is none other than Hwaryun. So Hwaryun, she is one of the best support units in the game. Now, when at the beginning phase of the game, she was broken. Like, she was the first SSR unit that we got in the game. Like, I'm not saying like, you know, like first SSR unit we've ever gotten, but like basically she was like the first event SSR character that we've got in the game, and she was so broken. And the reason why Hwaryun is like, the reason why she was just absolutely insane is because she can provide a barrier to your team. She she can basically provide additional attack to your team. So not to your team, but basically she will basically place a mark on an enemy, and if your allies attack that person with the mark, that person's attack will increase, and their crit hit will also increase as well. She also increases swiftness, and she can basically put like a enemy target. So she will place a pathway, and she will make your team focus on a specific enemy. So she will place a mark on that enemy, and then on top of that, she will place a pathway to that enemy with the mark. So her kit was just absolutely crazy. She did crazy damage as well. Like the fact that she's able to do good damage and she's like a support unit, it was crazy. So I'll say early game, Hwaryun cracked, broken as hell. Late game, I still think she is a good unit. Is she the same as like her early game? Like if we were to compare early game and late game, of course the early game, she is way better early game. But I'll still say in late game, she is still a decent unit overall. Like she can still clear content easily. So Hwaryun, I'm definitely going to put her in that S tier, along with Kun, Ron, Hatz, Yeon. I'm definitely putting her on that S tier. She's definitely not in that Yeon or Joaquin tier, but I'm definitely putting her in that S tier, because if you pair her up with units like Zia and increase her attack, Hwaryun, she just does devastating damage, and on top of that, she provides barrier to your team, which increases your team's survivability. So overall, Hwaryun, really solid character, especially when you put that brand new equipment set on her, which is the max HP set. She can provide barriers to the allies on the same row as her, and on top of that, give them energy. So Hwaryun, definitely S tier spot. Now for the next unit I want to talk about is none other than Zahard. Now Zahard, green element unit, absolutely insane. I'll say that he is literally the best green element unit in the game, and the reason why is because his survivability is cracked. You literally don't need any copies on this character. He has to be one of the most low investment SSR plus characters in the game, because his survivability is just crazy, and his special skill, there's just so much going on in his special skill. He can basically switch weapons, and he can do so many things like piercing attacks. He can do bleeding. He can put burning. He can basically inflict burning on enemy targets. He just has so much going on. Like he basically has damage over time. He can destroy shields. He's just absolutely insane. One of the most crazy SSR plus units in the game. He can basically increase magic resistance, and on top of that, he can also silence enemies, knock enemies back, do good damage. It's just crazy overall. He also has invincibility as well. So Zahard, one of the most cracked SSR plus units in the game, especially with the new equipment set. If you put lifesteal on him, the dude is immortal. So Zahard, definitely SS tier for sure. He is just cracked. He can do so much damage. Like before, he was like, because there was like a bug in the game where like his damage was trash. When they removed that bug, when they fixed that bug, man, he's just dominating. And I still feel like Zahard is still going to be good in the future. So Zahard is still up there in that SS tier for sure. Now for the next unit, we're going to talk about Bomb. Now Bomb, literally the best battery unit in the game, and the reason why he is the best battery unit in the game is because he can basically provide energy to your ally, and on top of that, he can increase their attack. So if you pair him up with a unit like, let's say, Yihwa can basically spam her attack, and she can just clear content easily. So overall, Bomb is just a really good unit. For his special move, he's also able to, he can become immune to status effects while using Black March when it's ignited. And on top of that, for his active, which is Prodigy Wave Controller, he becomes immune to Jolt and spends 3 seconds gathering the Tower Shinsu, then infuses it into the ally with the highest attack. So he can basically increase your allies' attack, and he also can increase their defense. So he has energy increase, defense increase, and attack increase. And he can also stop the enemy from moving. He can basically stop their movements, aka stunning them. So overall, Bomb, really good unit. The only downside about Bomb is the fact that he dies really quick because he's like a melee unit. So that's like the only thing, not melee unit, but like he can die pretty quick because if you put him in a front row, he just dies instantly. That's like the only downside about him, is that he dies a lot. But other than that, if you manage to make him survive, he's a really good unit overall, literally one of the best battery units in the game. So I'm definitely putting Bomb in that SS tier. Now for the next unit I also want to talk about is none other than Rak. Now Rak was a pretty solid unit at the beginning phase of the game. He wasn't bad, but like the reason why Rak is so bad right now in the game is because he just dies so fast. Like he dies instantly. His damage is just not, it's not bad, but like it's non-existent, and his defense is just terrible. He just dies instantly. I feel like Rak, he will be a good unit overall if he can actually survive, even though like even if you put equipment set, you put so many things on his character, he just dies instantly. So Rak, I'm definitely putting Rak probably around that C tier. I'll say early game Rak was B tier, but he definitely fell off to that C tier, especially the fact that we're in the end game right now. So Rak is definitely in that C tier because he just dies instantly, and yeah, overall his survivability is just it's dog shit. It's terrible. His survivability is trash overall. So that's pretty much Rak. Now for the next character, we have Child and Dorsy. Now for Child and Dorsy, you guys may know Child and Dorsy, she's cracked. Like the fact that she's able to place energy recovery block on the enemy, basically preventing the enemy from using their special skill. She's also able to do nuclear damage, AoE nuclear damage, and on top of that, she has a resurrection ability where when she, let's say she's about to die, she has 1 HP left, she's going to inflict a snake charm on the enemy. She has what they call the snake charm debuff, and this snake charm debuff is going to do amazing damage against the enemy, and if she's able to kill the enemy with the snake charm, she can revive herself. So if her snake charm is able to kill the enemy, she can revive herself, or if an ally is able to kill the enemy with the snake charm, she can still revive herself. But keep in mind, she can only do this, she can only revive herself if you're able to kill off the enemy before 7 seconds. So that's pretty much how Child and Dorsy works. She does amazing damage. She literally has energy recovery block, just an amazing unit overall. She can also jolt enemies, and she can also bleed enemy targets as well. It says hit enemies hit by the skill bleed for 4 seconds. So she's just a cracked unit overall, especially when you put the lifesteal set on her. Her survivability, really awesome. The fact that she has that revive ability, I would definitely recommend you guys to put her with like another DPS unit, because if she dies instantly, you definitely want another DPS unit like Yihwa to basically do that AoE attack so that she can basically get a guaranteed revive. So overall, Child and Dorsy, I'm definitely going to put her in that S tier for sure in almost everything, because the reason why she is S tier is because she does good damage. Her damage is definitely not on par with Joaquin and Yihwa, but her damage is definitely there, and she can basically place energy recovery block, which is really good against bosses. So Child and Dorsy, definitely S tier. Now for the next unit I'm going to talk about is none other than the new SSR character, Blanc. So Blanc, she was our newest SSR character, and overall I feel like Blanc, she is a solid support unit. She's really good, and the reason why she's a solid unit is because she has a lot of healing involved in her kit. She can basically provide healing to your whole team. She has a huge AoE heal, which is absolutely insane, and on top of that, she can buff your allies' attack and defense. So basically how her special skill works is whichever ally has the highest attack and whichever ally has the highest defense, she'll basically take their attack stat and defense stat, and she will basically place it on the enemy whose HP is below 50%. So whenever your ally has like the lowest HP, she's going to inflict the mega boost effect, which is basically going to buff up the enemy's attack and defense. She basically borrows attack and defense from the highest attack unit and from the highest defense unit. So she is a healing unit, and on top of that, she is a buffing unit. So overall, she is really solid unit overall, and she also provides green element resistance to your allies. So if you're going up against an enemy team, if you're going up against an enemy team that's basically green element, she can basically provide that additional resistance, which allows your team to survive pretty much for a long time. So Blanc overall, I'll say Blanc is a S tier character because she has that buffing, the attack and defense buff, and on top of that she has that healing. So she is really good overall. And she also has a shockwave, which deals 400% for attack as damage to nearby allies and also stunning enemies for 2 seconds. So she has an AoE stun, and on top of that she has a shocking. So yeah, Blanc definitely cracked. Really good unit. Now the next character I'm going to talk about is Rachel. Now Rachel was one of the collab units. Now Rachel, she is really good. Like, I'll say out of all the SSR plus units we've had so far, I'll say she is my favorite one because her survivability, it's not bad, but her damage is what makes her really crack, because basically this is how her kit works. So when we look at Rachel, we basically look at a character who can do nuclear damage, especially against bosses. Like, her potential against bosses is absolutely insane. Now I'll say one of the main reasons why she's so good is because she can basically heal. So let's say, you know, you were putting her with Yeon. The fact that she's a ranged unit, you put her in the same row as Yeon, she's basically going to heal Yeon and make sure that Yeon stays alive. She's also going to heal herself. And if you put that attack speed equipment set on her, she's just a machine gun. She's like literally just destroying enemies left and right. So overall, Yeon is not Yeon, but Rachel, really good unit. And she can also become immune to swiftness and attack speed decrease when she uses her active, which is Flames of Regeneration. That's basically like her AoE field. So that basically makes her even more cracked, because if you have the attack speed set on her, and let's say an enemy reduces attack speed, she can basically be immune to that, which basically gives her like a guaranteed attack speed buff. So yeah, cracked unit, really good against bosses. She's literally carrying me in adventure mode. She's just so good overall. She also has a crit hit increase, so she's basically able to land guaranteed crits. Not like guaranteed crits like 100% crit, but she can basically increase her crit by 30% for 10 seconds, and the more you increase her passive, the higher that crit percentage boost goes. So overall, really good unit, and I would definitely put her in S tier. Her damage is still not on the same level as Joaquin and Yihwa, but I'll say against bosses, I'll say Rachel, she's definitely up there in that SS tier for sure against bosses, because her damage is really good against bosses. Like, she can do like 232 million damage. Like, it's crazy. So I'm putting her in S tier overall, because in PvP, she's not that good in PvP. But for PvE and bosses, she's definitely S tier overall. So yeah, Rachel, she's definitely an S tier. Now the next unit I want to talk about is Novick. Now Novick, overall, Novick is not a bad unit, but I'll say Novick, he really shines against bosses, but in PvP and PvE, he kind of sucks low-key. But like against bosses, he's still good. Like, he's literally a really good boss unit, but for story and PvP, he really sucks, because the reason why he sucks in story and PvP is because he dies too quick. So Novick, the reason why he's really good against bosses is because he can basically provide like a physical resistance buff to your team, which basically allows him to stay alive longer. He also has a silence, so he can basically silence the enemy and prevent them from attacking, from not attacking, but basically from using their special skill. And on top of that, when he basically brings out his Crimson Soul Fist Seal Zone, he can basically block the enemy's swiftness increase. And on top of that, it says enemies within the seal zone are locked, so I think they cannot get out of the seal zone. But overall, I feel like Novick, he has potential against bosses for sure, because of the silence, and especially another active where it says Novick attacks enemies to deal 830% of his attack as damage, and all basic attacks dealt by the target will miss for 10 seconds. So he also has like a guaranteed evasion for like your allies who are within the Crimson. I think, yeah, for his active, Novick attack enemies to deal 840% of his attack as damage, and all basic attacks dealt by the target will, yeah. So basically his active, the Crimson Bell Shock, it basically gives him a guaranteed evasion for 10 seconds. So that's honestly not that bad, but overall it's not that good, because it still doesn't it really doesn't benefit your allies. It only benefits himself, and his survivability is still bad. So I would definitely put Novick in that B tier for sure, because he does have potential against bosses, but the only thing he's good at in the game is just bosses, and that's it. In story, he's not good. In PvP, he's definitely not good there. So yeah, Novick definitely B tier. When you increase his exclusive equipment, you basically have this effect where when he uses his special skill, the amount of damage that your team receives is decreased. So that's not bad overall, but the biggest issue with Novick is still his survivability. So I feel like that's still one of the biggest problems with Novick until this day. So that's pretty much Novick. He is going to be B tier. Now for the next unit I'm going to talk about is none other than Kaseya. Now Kaseya, she is by far one of the best assassin units in the game, and the reason why she's an amazing assassin unit is because she can basically teleport in just one shot. And I'll say like the only thing that's holding her back is of course accuracy. If you don't have a lot of accuracy on Kaseya, she won't be able to land her attack, like not land her attacks, but she won't be able to deal damage as much. And yeah, that's basically Kaseya. She's able to become invincible. Her survivability is not god tier, but she can basically survive as long as you find a way how to make her survive. If you put her like with the right healer, with the right units, she can do some major damage, especially in story mode and PvP as well. So overall, Kaseya, really solid unit, deals good damage. She can also bleed enemy targets. She basically has a damage over time. And yeah, it says if the target's HP is 50% or below, the attack coefficient increases by 100%. So she can basically deal more damage if the enemy has below 50%. So overall, Kaseya, I would definitely put Kaseya in that S tier. She's still not in that godly tier with Joaquin and Yihwa, but she is definitely on the same level with Child and Dorsy, Hwaryun and Yeon, and etc. So overall, Kaseya, she's still one of the best assassin units for sure. Now, another unit I want to talk about is Loze. Now, for Loze, you guys already know Loze. She is a healer, and in the early game, Loze was literally C tier or B tier in the early game. But the reason why she's really good in the late game is because of the collab event. Now, for the collab event, they basically gave us 3 green element characters, and the reason why Loze's potential was basically boosted is because she can basically increase green element attack. So that is honestly really good if you put her in the green element team. And I literally just pulled Loze like a couple hours ago. So Loze, she definitely has potential, especially with the new collab characters. I feel like if we didn't have the new collab characters, she would still be in that B tier or C tier. But the fact that the new collab characters came, they have that green element resistance debuff, and you also have Rachel, who deals really good damage. I feel like if you put Loze with Rachel, that's just a deadly combo. If you basically put Loze in like a green element team, she can do really well. So overall, I feel like Loze is definitely going to be probably in that S tier or A tier. This is a tough one, because putting her in S tier would basically be putting her in the same tier as Zia. But honestly, I would definitely put Loze in that S tier for sure, because her potential got boosted for sure. If it wasn't for the collab units, I would still put her in B tier, but she's definitely an S tier because of the collab units overall. So yeah, she's definitely S tier for sure because of the collab units. Now, another character I also want to talk about is none other than Koon Aguero. Now, Koon Aguero, I've said it since the start. Like, I literally said it as soon as Tower of God New World launched. One of the first videos I made was on Koon Aguero and how cracked he is. And I was absolutely right. Koon Aguero is literally a really good purple unit. And the reason why he's so good is because of that AoE stun. That AoE stun can literally come in clutch, especially in PvP. He's really one of the best units you want to use in PvP because of that AoE stun. He can also provide shield, and he can also buff up purple element attack. So the fact that you have units like Joaquin, Kaseya, the fact that he can basically increase their attack and allow them to do more damage, Koon Aguero is definitely top tier for sure. Really insane. And he also restores energy by 40 every second for the duration, basically for his quadruple barrier active skill. So he also increases energy. He has AoE stun, and on top of that, he has purple element buff. There's just so much to his kit. Koon Aguero, SS tier for sure. especially in PvP. He's cracked against bosses, B tier or A tier, but against, you know, story mode PvP, crack character. He's just absolutely insane. So that's pretty much Koon Aguero. Now for the next character we have Evan. Now for Evan, I feel like at the beginning of the game, Evan was just broken. Evan was an absolutely broken character. Now the more we're progressing through the game, the more we're progressing towards that end game, I feel like Evan, he's still cracked for sure. Still cracked support unit because he has that immortality, which basically allows your team to stay alive. But I'll say overall, Evan, the only thing that sucks about Evan is that it takes him forever to proc that immortality. Like when his special skill is available, he would just stand there AFK and he won't even do anything, which is annoying. So that's like the only thing I can't stand about Evan. But other than that, Evan, he's still SS tier for sure because he basically increases your team's survivability with the immortality with his special skill. So overall, Evan's still cracked unit. Like he's still one of the best supports unit overall because of that immortality. Now for our next character is going to be Data Maschenny. Now Data Maschenny, I don't really use Data Maschenny that much. I still use her, but not as much as I used to back in the days. Now Data Maschenny, she is a pretty good character overall in terms of survivability. Did she fall off? I wouldn't necessarily say so, but she is still a good unit overall because basically she has like an invincibility where she won't die. She won't die for like a certain amount of time. Like it doesn't matter how much damage the enemy can do to you. Her HP will literally be at like 0% and she will still be alive. So she is literally cracked in terms of survivability. She can do some good damage. She can also decrease the magic resistance of enemies by like 20%, and of course you can increase that. And then for her actives, she can like dash forward. She can basically move around the battlefield, deal some really good damage, and she's also invincible when she casts her active skills, which is really, really good. And she also has a Shinsu barrier. She basically creates a Shinsu barrier, and enemies inside the Shinsu barrier, they deal 40% less damage to Data Maschenny. So basically she can basically decrease the amount of damage she can take when she puts down that Shinsu barrier. So overall, she's a really solid unit because she can basically remove all status effects for her passive, and she basically has a lightning pill that she swallows, and it's just absolutely insane. So overall, Data Maschenny in terms of survivability, she's really good. So I'm definitely still putting her in that SS tier because she can basically survive for a really long time. Like out of all the assassin characters we have in the game so far, she is the tankiest assassin character because she has that invincibility, which is absolutely insane. Now we pretty much covered a lot of characters. I feel like we should probably cover 2 more characters because yeah, I don't want this video to be too long because I feel like if I were to continue this video for like if I were to do this whole tier list, this video would be for like an hour. So I would definitely do Vile next. I feel like Vile, when Vile was first launched into the game, he was trash. He was a trash unit overall. The reason why he sucked is because his kit was just not enough. He didn't do a lot of damage. He would miss all the time and he would basically die instantly. So the reason why Vile, I would put him in S tier overall is because of the buff that he just received. So basically this buff is that for his special skill, he can basically reduce all the cooldowns for his active, which is basically the cooldown for his active and passive as well. It's just crazy overall, and I feel like that basically increases his potential because he can basically do more damage now. And the fact that you have, you know, the new equipment sets, that basically increases Val's potential, especially with the new attack speed set. So Val definitely, he was like when he first came out, bro was like B tier, but as soon as he got buffed with the brand new special skill, S tier for sure because he can do more damage now. So Vile, really, really solid unit. Now for, I'll say last unit. I'll say for the last unit because there's just so many units. But I'll say for the last unit I want to talk about, I would definitely say Karaka. Now Karaka, at the beginning phase of the game, like if you're a brand new player and if you got Karaka, he's good. But I'll say Karaka, before the equipment set, he was bad. And the reason why he was bad is because he was really squishy. Even though he had that immortality, like he would basically revive himself, he would still die instantly. And I'll say like the only good thing about Karaka was that he had the fear. He can basically inflict fear on the enemy, which is really solid overall. So I feel like Karaka, he definitely, his potential increased because of the brand new equipment set, which is, I think, the defense set. The reason why that equipment set is so good on him is because he can basically taunt enemies and make them attack him instead. So that's actually pretty good. The fact that he has that taunt mechanic is honestly pretty good. So overall, Karaka, really good unit. If you can actually manage to make him survive, he can really do some good damage, especially with his special skill. He can do really solid damage overall. So Karaka, me personally, if I were to use Karaka right now, I would still put Karaka in S tier. And the reason why I'm not putting him in SS tier is because you still need a lot, like you basically need a lot of copies of him in order for him to be good. So I would still put Karaka in S tier. I'll say the reason why I put him in S tier is because of the new equipment set. If it wasn't for the new equipment set, I would put him in A tier. But I would definitely put him in S tier overall because of the new equipment set. So that's pretty much the tier list. I know I haven't put the rest of the characters, but so far this video, it probably hit like 40 minutes or even 50 minutes. So I'll say like these are probably like the main characters everybody are mainly like out of all the units we have in the game. I mean, Blarode, if I were to put Blarode in the tier list right now, against bosses, S tier. Against, you know, like if you were putting like PvE, I would still put him probably in like S tier or even A tier overall. I'll put him in S tier overall for sure because he's really cracked against bosses, so that definitely gives him a boost. But these are pretty much all the units overall that everyone is pretty much focusing on in the game. Like these units like Anak, Quant, and Dorsy, Yuri, Shibisu. I mean, Koon Aguero, the reason why I didn't put Koon Aguero on this tier list set is because I don't even have him and I never tested him before. So it's like I can't really put him on this tier list at all until I have him. But for these units, it's like everybody pretty much knows how these units work. Wangnan was godly in the beginning of the game, but he really fell off overall. I feel like he's still good in PvP, but he just fell off because of, you know, other like basically units who are doing way better than him and they're performing way better than Wangnan. They basically just power crept him. That's basically all it comes down to. It just comes down to power crep. So Wangnan, if I were to put him on the tier list right now, I would put Wangnan in A tier as of to right now because he just fell off in terms of other characters just performing better than him, and he basically just got power crep. That's all there is to it. So yeah, that's basically the tier list. Put your thoughts down below in the comment section of what you guys think about the tier list so far. I want to see y'all's opinions. If I did anything wrong, I want to see, you know, which characters I, you know, did wrong and if I can, you know, fix their adjustments. But overall, I feel like this tier list is not bad. It's a pretty good tier list. Like you literally have Loze, Kaseya, Kun, Ron, Yihwa. I feel like they're in the right tier. But that's just me. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate y'all for watching this video, and I'll be catching you guys on the next one. Peace.